All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to start a series of videos today about how to actually beat Paladins in PvP with various classes. I've already made like videos about how to use Paladin to beat this class, how to use Paladin to beat that class, and really there isn't any other. There's nobody who makes PvP guides about Paladin concerning Classic World of Warcraft. Probably because I can't do better than I do, and it's been that way since I basically started this channel, like 5, 6 years ago or whatever the hell it is at this point. Um, however, the main reason why I'm making this video is kind of fascinating. It is because of the number one thing up here that I have written down, which is that no, we want this. It's that 80% of paladins do not look up guides. They subsequently wear the wrong gear, and therefore they suck. Even if they know what they're doing, even if they are good at pushing their buttons and stuff, generally speaking, they're just wearing the wrong gear, and usually, I'm not going to lie, even their tactics suck. So I, as a paladin player, have to live in a world where I am running around watching other paladins wear the wrong gear and getting absolutely smoked by the Horde. Like the Horde are just basically rickrolling them. And then, of course, this sucks for me because I don't get good fights against the Horde because they'll run in and attack me thinking that I'm some, like, random, normal, stupid paladin, and they get their asses kicked. Um, but this is just part of the landscape for Paladin. So one of the main goals for this series for me is to get the Horde to be better at beating Paladins in Classic WoW, so that the Paladins then feel the need to go look up actual guides so that we can actually get the Paladin player base closer to being 50-50 as to whether or not they actually look up guides. So in a roundabout way, this is actually going to benefit my channel and benefit what I do. I really don't care about the channel all that much. I care about making Paladins better PvPers. The other reason why I'm making this series is a lot of the Paladin players that still follow my channel and that used to be Palatine fans, or are Palatine fans, I suppose, they've since gone on to play not only Horde side often, but other classes. So, for example, Dwarf Lord is playing on the Horde side. He's playing anything but a Paladin these days. Who else? Talrain isn't playing Warrior anymore. Drakova quit the game. A lot of ex-Paladin players, really good Paladin players, are playing classes that are not Paladin, and they might actually benefit from from me explaining how to best beat Paladin, even though they're probably very experienced players and they have a good idea of it. But they want to pick my brain on the subject anyways. All right, so without further ado, let's get this show on the road. I am a quite long-winded guide maker, so just sit back and relax. There's not going to be virtually anything on the screen that you need to pay attention to. You can literally just tab over and honor farm or level your character and listen to what I have to say. I design my videos very specifically, so you don't have to actually look at anything. All right, moving on. All right, so number one up here, I have 80% of Paladins do not look up guides. They subsequently wear the wrong gear and they suck. This leads into my second point, which is that you can often tell a good Paladin versus a bad Paladin, literally based upon what gear they're wearing about 50% of the time. The other time, you can tell what spec they are, if that makes any sense. So, for example, when I'm in Alterac Valley, I see a lot of Paladins running around with, like, they'll have, like, a Tier 2 helmet, Tier 2 legs, maybe random bits of Tier 2, but for the most part, they're in the Tier 1 banana suit, right? They're in Lawbringer suit. There's only two possibilities for that Paladin. The first possibility is that they suck, because honestly, they should be wearing their rank gear banana suit. So if you see a Paladin who's running around in the BG looking like this, where they're clearly wearing a 6-piece rank gear of some kind, and they're using an unstoppable force or a better two-handed weapon, this is a Paladin you need to pucker your asshole for. This is a Paladin who knows what the fuck he's doing, has probably looked up a guide, and is wearing the correct gear. The correct gear for a Paladin to wear is all stats gear, which is going to be our Marshal's gear, it's going to be our Avenger's gear, it's going to be, sometimes it's random bits of Tier 2. But if you see a Paladin geared like this, actually wearing their rank gear, that's the one you need to worry about. If they're running around in a banana suit with bits of Tier 2, odds are they suck, they don't know what they're doing, or they've decided they're going to be a dedicated healer. So if you see like an unstoppable force and a banana suit or a two-hander with like chunks of banana suit and they're ignoring their rank gear, they suck. If they're wearing like Malistar's Defender and like a one-hander, they probably decided there's going to be a Holy Paladin. That's probably a target you want to CC more than you want to try to kill. He's going to be hard to put down. Mortal Strike alone kind of will screw over his mana bar. All right, so that's the second point. Now, the reason why this is super important, and you'll see that this guide basically centers around knowing whether you're dealing with a good paladin or not, knowing whether you're dealing with a properly geared paladin or not, because your tactics are going to vary wildly. Against good paladin players wearing the right gear, you need to figure out that you're actually fighting something you need to run away from as quickly as possible. This is true for hunters, this is true for warriors, this is true for rogues. There are certain paladins with certain gears and certain builds that you do not want to fuck with, and the correct course of action is to run away for your fucking life. But the vast majority of paladins are going to suck, and you're actually going to be able to beat them. I'm just going to tell you how to beat them even better. Alright, so number 3 here is tactics that work. Yeah, we just talked about this. Tactics that work on bad paladins will fail versus good ones. However, there is plenty of time to realize this mistake and to run away. Covered that. You need to give time in the fight to tell if the paladin is good or bad, assuming you have time. Alright, so if I had a checklist, the first checklist would be identify what gear the paladin is wearing. If he's not wearing specifically this gear right here, and there may or may not have a helmet being shown. If they're wearing the rank gear and they're using a good two-handed weapon, you need to be on high alert. If they're wearing anything else, it means they probably suck. Okay. However, just because they're wearing the right gear doesn't mean they're actually good at the game. And that's where number 4 comes into play, and you actually have to give them the time to try to figure out what kind of paladin you're dealing with. Because when you see them wearing the rank gear and you see them having a good two-handed weapon, there are 3 versions of paladin they can theoretically be. They can be a deep ret paladin, they can be a holy reckoning paladin, or they can be a ret reckoning paladin, right? You'll notice that 2 of those 3 options have reckoning, one of them does not. If you see a repent come out of the paladin, you know he doesn't have reckoning. Otherwise, you're dealing with a reckoning paladin. If their wreck bomb hits you like a truck, you're dealing, or more, I should say more accurately, if you're seeing or hearing the effects of Seal of Command, when Seal of Command, yeah, if they have Seal of Command, that's not going to be a Holy Reckoning Paladin. If they do have Seal of Command, that means either a Deep Ret or a Command Paladin. Really what we're looking for here when we're playing with our food, dealing with paladins, is are we dealing with a Reckoning Paladin or not? If we've identified that we're dealing with a Reckoning Paladin, we may or may not want to play a little bit differently. If we've identified that it's a Deep Ret Paladin, then those are usually the far less scary paladins, specifically for a warrior. Paladins that have Repent are basically dead meat to a warrior. They actually have a pretty hard time beating warriors. The Reckoning Paladins have a noticeably better chance of beating the warriors. A good paladin versus a good warrior will identify the situation and immediately swap into a shield. That's something I haven't written down, but it's going to be a theme. So we're going to finally get into what you're supposed to do as a warrior versus a paladin. And again, this is from a paladin's perspective. This is not from a warrior's perspective. So I've looked up the warrior guides versus paladin, and they all basically say to stack 5 Sunders. This is a mistake. There's a time to stack 5 Sunders, and there's a time not to stack 5 Sunders. Really what you want to do as the warrior, the correct line of play is to charge into the paladin, put a hamstring on them. This will encourage them to cast a freedom and to remove might off themselves, to remove kings off themselves. That's all you're really going for when you put at least 1 hamstring on them. You're not really doing it for the slow. You're doing it to so that they debuff themselves with freedom. And then you want to put 2 Sunders on them. Then you want to get a 3rd Sunder and a Mortal Strike on them as quickly as possible. However, the order will that you do that in will matter based upon how much rage you get from your second hit, and possibly from your first hit if your first hit crits, right? So if you don't have the mana to rage. Ideally, we have the rage on our warrior to be able to mortal strike and or to be able to put a third sunder on the paladin and to get a mortal strike on them within 2 auto attacks of rage generation. But if we don't have that and we have to choose between putting a third sunder on them or putting a mortal strike on them, you really should go for the mortal strike. Stacking up to 5 Sunders is typically a bad idea. Once you get 3 Sunders on the Paladin, you just want to basically beat them to death. You're pretty much guaranteed to win that fight against any Paladin if they stay a two-handed weapon. The vast majority of Paladins are retarded, and they will actually hang and bang with you with a two-handed weapon. So basically, if the Paladin is not swapping one-hander and shield versus you as a warrior, you're super happy about the situation. If you see the Paladin swapping into a shield, the hair on the back of your neck should stand up, your butthole should pucker, and you should be aware you're probably dealing with a Paladin a lot better than you think. The correct line of play for a Paladin, how do I put this? Okay, so why are we stacking Sunders and not opening with Mortal Strike? Like that's the question, right? We got to answer. So as a Paladin, if I'm in proper all stats gear, if I'm a Reckoning Paladin, which I highly suggest Paladins be that a Holy Reckoning or be that a Reckoning Paladin, if a warrior charges into me and spends their first bit of rage on like Hamstring and Mortal Strike, that if I just hang and bang with him as a Reckoning Paladin, if I just sit here with my two-handed weapon and we just fight it out to the death, so the warrior never stacks under armor on me. They just Mortal Strike, Whirlwind, Mortal Strike, Whirlwind until the end of time. There's like a 70 to an 80% chance that I will win that fight against that warrior, assuming I am properly geared. If I'm not properly geared, then I would say the fight is noticeably in the warrior's favor. So banana suit and all that stuff. But again, if you are... Yeah, so I'm going to have like a 70 to 80% win chance, especially if I'm smart enough to realize that he's not spending any rage on Hamstring anymore. Therefore, I probably should remite myself and just beat the shit out of him with might. I got plenty of mana. I might as well keep miting myself. That's why that is a losing proposition, and you don't really want to do that. Yeah, opening Mortal Strike is usually bad. You really want to stack some Sunder Armors on him. Stacking 5 Sunder Armors, however, is bad, and this is what all the warrior guides suggest. This is bad because the correct counter play to a warrior who has charged me and is now stacking Sunders is for me to literally just fucking heal myself. It is literally just to be like, okay, you're stacking Sunders, hey, let me top myself off to full. So the Paladin will do one of two things. He'll either sit there like a dunce, waiting for you to get 5 stacks. Because you have 5 stacks of Sunder on him, you're going to basically force him to bubble or bop super quickly, which is going to remove the stacks, right? So what you're going to find is you're going to get a lot of mileage out of your first 3 Sunder stacks, but you're not going to get a lot of mileage out of your remaining 2 Sunder stacks because the Paladin was not healing himself, and you basically forced him to bubble in record time, removing the Sunder stacks. Now, there is a correct line of play here for the warrior, and that is that once you get 5 stacks of Sunder on the Paladin to not Mortal Strike, or to not Whirlwind, but, you know, get Mortal Strike on him, but basically to let your Rage Bar stack like crazy from all the auto attacks so that you have like an 80% Rage Bar ready to rock and roll with Whirlwind and Mortal Strike pretty much off of cooldown by the time he comes out of his bubble. The last thing you want to do is to dump all the rage you're getting from the 5 Sunder stacks into the Paladin, forcing him to bubble and remove your Sunders as quickly as possible. We'd prefer to let those Sunders linger on the Paladin, get mileage out of them, generate a bunch of rage, and then when he does bubble and remove the Sunder stacks, we're ready to go with like an 80% rage bar. So we can just easily put 3 more Sunder stacks on him and beat his ass to death, right? However, the correct course of play for the Paladin is literally to realize you're stacking Sunders, realize you don't have Mortal Strike on him, and then to heal himself to full. Then proceed to beat the shit out of you for a while. When he's at about 50% life, he'll bubble, which is bubbling. So he'll bubble early to remove the stacks of Sunder as quickly as possible. And then he won't actually Holy Light himself, allowing you to get distance, allowing you to bandage as the warrior. This is what I do versus them, and I have in like almost 100% win rate versus the Paladins and the warriors that stacks under. I literally just heal pot and whip a root tuber while I'm bubbled, so no mortal strike. And that's more than enough to heal me for 50% of my life. And I use bubble, the entirety of my 12-second bubble offensively against the warrior, so they're not allowed to bandage, they're not allowed to do anything like this, blah, 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 blah. They can fear me and get a bandage in, assuming I don't have PvP trinket. Once my bubble is ended, that's usually their best play. But that's still a considerable chunk of rage that basically got wasted on the fear. The problem we're having here is that we're already seeing signs that we're dealing with a paladin that knows what the fuck they're doing. And the hard counter to any warrior killing a paladin is for us to swap sword and shield. So if you see the paladin at any time in the fight, be like, yeah, I'm going to put on a fast one-hander like a flurry axe or something. I'm going to get my shield on. I'm going to activate my Seal of the Crusader. I'm going to Judge Crusader into you, and I'm just going to beat the crap out of you with Seal of Righteousness and Judgment of the Righteousness while sword and boarding. If you see the Paladin at any point decide to go sword and board, you're probably going to lose that fight. Going sword and board versus a warrior tends to give us a near 100% win rate. The problem is that it's a super long fight, and we may or may not have time for that in battlegrounds. We usually have time for that in open world battles, you know, blah, 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 blah. But if they, at any point in time, decide that they're going to go sword and board, especially early on in the fight, you're probably screwed. So the correct course of action for me as a paladin is to be like, oh, there's some Sunder armors on me here. Let me just do a little bit of healing, heal myself to full, and then I'll hang and bang. I'll hang and bang with you. If the warrior is dumb enough to go up to 5 stacks of Sunder armor, if he's dumb enough to dump all his rage into me to try to get me to bubble it as quickly as possible, as opposed to pooling his rage. If I'm seeing stupidity out of the warrior, then I'm going to feel very comfortable staying with my two-handed weapon and beating the crap out of this guy. I'll literally just bubble early. I'll use a healing potion. I'll use a whipper tuber, and you know we'll basically go from there. But if the warrior is showing signs of correct play, which is, you know, only doing 3 Sunders, getting a mortal strike on me as quickly as possible to stop the healing, you know, pooling his rage, that sort of stuff, I'm going to be like, yeah, this warrior knows what the fuck he's doing. I'm going to go sword and board. And at that point, you've lost the fight as a warrior, because the paladin is showing signs of actually knowing what the hell they're doing. Let me get some drinks and stuff here for the day. But we don't want that. What? I can double stack these? All right, that's cool. Didn't know that. What else do we need? Get some of this. Yeah, we should be good. Okay, good. Right, so there's this weird back and forth between you as the warrior and the paladin. And that is that we're going to open on this paladin as if they suck, but we need to be mindful of what correct paladin counterplay looks like. If the paladin is successfully navigating the problems that we are posing to him, then we as the warrior need to realize the direness of the situation, put a hamstring on this asshole, wait for his freedom to be a little bit low, or fear him and run away. It's not fear him and bandage, it's fear him and run for our fucking lives, because you're not going to win against that paladin. Now keep in mind, this is going to be like 10% of the paladin player base is going to know how to correctly navigate the situation. The vast majority of the paladins are either going to be wearing the wrong gear, so it doesn't even matter if they correctly navigate, they're probably going to die anyways. Or they just don't know what to do, so they're going to die to you. And again, the correct course of action is charge into the paladin, put a hamstring on him, put 2 Sunders on him, get a mortal strike on him as quickly as possible. If he's not healing, that is a sign that you are Gucci. He's a dumbass. He should be, his counterplay to you stacking Sunders should be to top himself off HP wise. And then we can continue on with proper warrior play. Proper warrior play would be to get this Mortal Strike on him, not go to 5 Sunders, but we're not going to waste rage on Whirlwinding. We're not going to waste rage on Mortal Striking on cooldown. We're literally going to auto-attack this Paladin to fucking death, so we have this massive rage bar to dump into him once he comes out of the bubble. Hell, we could, once he comes out of the bubble, we can fear him, bandage up, and we still have this massive effing rage bar to stack a bunch of Sunders on him and to crush him into the dirt, right? We still want to get that Mortal Strike on him as quickly as possible, because even a stupid Paladin can realize that you're stacking a million Sunders on him, and he probably should take the time to heal. So, for example, a lot of times I'm not looking for a lot of Paladins, even though they suck, are going to be mindful enough about the situation to realize you're going up to 5 Sunder stacks. I probably should heal myself. You want to take that card away from them by just going up to 3, by getting a Mortal Strike on them as quickly as possible. Be like, no, I'm going to take that away from you. The other option they can do is that they'll just heal pot and Whipperoot Tuber in your fucking face while you're trying to go up to 5 Sunder stacks. We don't want that either, right? We want him to realize that they're in a predicament sooner rather than later. Or how do I? No, we don't want them to realize they're in a predicament. Now, English is failing. There are a bunch of good kiting strategies that work extremely well, but in a lot of cases you won't have time for that, or the Paladin is bad enough that doing the kiting strategies is 100% not necessary. If the Paladin swaps sword and board very, very quickly, and you have the time and the space to do the kiting strategies, they are legitimately good against the Paladin. There's a good chance you can actually beat the Paladin over a long enough period of time, despite proper play from the Paladin. But a really good Paladin is going to give you one hell of a run for your money, is going to probably beat the shit out of you. These kiting strategies tend to only work because the Paladin is failing a gear check. That is the TLDR behind that. So, for example, I'm trying to tell the Paladins these days... Yeah, we're still recording. I'm trying to tell the Paladins these days to go wear a suit of gear that will cause them to have a mana bar of like 4,500. I'll have some Paladins argue back to me that, no, they're actually going to wear a suit that has 3,800 mana bar, but increases their critical strike chance by like 3%. Okay, so they're actually, I think they only have like a 3,500 mana bar. Or even 33. It's actually pretty gross how much they have to sacrifice their mana bar in order to get a thicker, a better critical strike chance. I think it's 50% of their mana bar. Yeah, so I think they're closer to like 3,300 mana. But they've got plus 3% crit. Kiting tactics against a Paladin that has a relatively weak and small mana bar is incredibly fucking effective. You will win a mana war versus that Paladin hands the fuck down. Especially since a lot of Paladins don't actually have mana potions at their disposal. But if you're trying that shit against a Paladin that clearly has a really thick mana bar, so they're wearing lots of tier 2, they're wearing lots of Marshal's gear, they're wearing tier 1 with tier 2 mixed pieces, that's a Paladin that's going to have a thick mana bar, and the kiting tactics don't work anywhere near as well against them. You can tell how thick a Paladin's mana bar is primarily based off of like the first Holy Light that they do. So we'll just, yeah, so I got almost a 4,000 mana bar right here. And you can see that I've got enough mana, like I can do quite a number of Holy Lights. 3 Holy Lights is more than enough Holy Lights to top myself off. You can see that cost me like maybe 40% of my mana bar right there. By the 4,500 mana is on the low end of what I proposed Paladins to be. It's like for a Reckoning Paladin. The high-end mana bar, the thing that I'm going to be doing as a heal Reckoning Paladin, is going to have like 5,300 mana. I'm going to be a very thick mana bar. I fucking dare you to try your stupid little kiting tactics against me. You're going to get your shit kicked in. Just is what it is. Also, if they got the right trinkets, I'm always telling people to take Goblin Mortar, Gnomish Detomatic. That usually shuts down warrior kiting tactics pretty damn hard. Blah, 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 blah. So anyways, I'm in a video here, and Deus Vult. This is how you beat Paladins as warriors. It's a interesting ride, I must admit. Just know that if the only thing you take away from this video is charge into Paladin, hamstring them, get 3 Sunders on them, put a Mortal Strike on them, then auto-attack them to generate a bunch of... to pool a massive rage bar in anticipation of their bubble, fear them when they come out of the bubble, and then bandage up to full, or bandage while they're healing themselves in the bubble. By the way, healing themselves in the bubble is actually a mistake. You need, I'm just, you'll notice I don't fucking do that. I'm like bubble, you know, healing potion, whipperoot tuber, and I just stick on top of the warrior the entire time the bubble is active, beat the shit out of them, do a bunch of judgments. I'm going to force you to fucking fear me. I want that 20 rage out of you in order for you to bandage. I might even have PvP trinket or counterplay to that. Like I might turn to the nearest mob, judge damage into them, so that now that I have a mob attacking me, so you can't even... you'd have to whirlwind to get the mob off me before you could fear and bandage, I think. But now you're risking deep wounds. It's a bad time. It's a bad time. If all you take away from this video is charging into every paladin you see and following this battle plan, you're gonna beat like 90% of the Paladin player base, like easy. You won't even notice the good Paladins playing properly most of the time. However, if you're charging into something that has a shield, for whatever reason, you got to go up to 5 Sunder stacks. There are times to go up to 5 Sunder stacks. When they have a shield, that is one of them. When they're responding to your stacking of Sunders by healing themselves or helopotting and whipperoot tubering, that's when you really should go up to 5 Sunder stacks. That's when you're going to get the value out of those extra Sunder stacks, whereas the vast majority of the time, it's just going to be a waste of mana or a waste of rage. It's even more of a waste of rage when you stack up to 5 Sunder stacks and then you Immortal Strike and Whirlwind on cooldown to get them to bop or bubble as quickly as possible. Like, fucking why? Yeah, so anyways, go out there, beat the shit out of the Paladins, and for the love of God, I want you to dry hump their corpses so that they feel ashamed of themselves and go actually watch a proper Paladin PvP guide. Alright, I'm ending the video here. Deus Vult.